Some of the folks from this group has asked me to demonstrate the usage of lookup using a video. So here's a quick demonstration of how to use lookup in your OmniScript. The lookup element can be used to search for and get one single field from your from the Salesforce, from the database. So if your requirement is that you want to get the value of one specific field, you don't have to take the additional effort of writing a data raptor or using a type ahead key to get that value in. So here I have a couple of demonstrations of the various use cases of lookup. The first one, as you can see, is to look up the account. So what I want to see is a list of accounts, and when I select one account from that list, I want to store the value of the ID. Note that lookup can store only one field from an object. If you want more than one field, you should use one of the other methods like type ahead block. But if you just want one field, you can just use a lookup. So here I am trying to display list of accounts, and on selecting the account, I want to see store the value of ID. I'll just show you the configuration first. So I'll select the data source as an S object. If you have any input parameters to your lookup, you should store the input parameters in in here. In my first example, I'm not using any input parameter. I just want to see a list of all accounts. So I will leave this part empty. Now look at the query configuration. So I have just one query. So I'm saying where account ID is not equal to empty, which essentially will filter all the will get all the records. I will store the results into a JSON path called as accounts internally. It will store to account. This JSON path is not going to be added to your data JSON. This will stay within the lookup. Now, once you select the value from the list of returned values in here, I am saying that the ID is what should be stored in your JSON. So this ID will be stored against this name of this particular element, and what will be displayed on the drop down is name. So the use as value is the value that you want to select, and use as the label. It could be the same, it could be two different values. So in here I want to say that list the names, and when I select one name, store the ID of that corresponding name. Let's see this in working. Right, so this is my first lookup. So click on the lookup, it will run the query dynamically. So I'm getting all accounts over here. So you see the list of all accounts. Say I've selected one account from this list. Let's say I've selected Acme as the account, and you will see the lookup account stores the ID of Acme account. Right. So this is the first demonstration where you can just use to get a list of values. You can also pass variables into your lookup. Say for example, say I'm adding a input field here. So I'll add a text field. Just add the field in here. Now I'll just make some configuration. First configuration change that I'm going to do is I'm going to say that I want to use this particular field to search for accounts. So I'll say that my data source is account search key. I will store that in a variable called as key in this particular case, and I'm going to say that I will look for name like the filter value. You can have one or more filters that are stored in here. So which specific filter are you going to use in your query? You can use only one filter. So it's one of the limitations of lookup, that you can only use just one filter in in this particular scenario. The rest of the configuration is essentially same. So instead of getting all accounts, I'm saying that whatever you type in your first field, which is the account search key, is going to be used as your filter value. So let's see the difference now. So this time I will type something in here and click on lookup. It will run the query and will give you the set of results based on this query. My query is essentially where name like AC. So wherever you have the matching records, you will get it. So the one limitation in here is that your search key is going to be on a different field rather than on your lookup itself. So it won't work like a type ahead, or it won't work like a standard lookup field on Salesforce. The lookup, you can just click on it and it will give you a suggestion, and you can just select one value from that list. The second lookup that I have over here is an example of using multiple values from a previous field, like how I have used account name in here to look up for the account. Now I am going to use the output of the account lookup as input into your contact lookup. So my second lookup is contact lookup. Here you will see that lookup account, which is my first lookup. I am storing the account ID. The filter is account ID, and my configuration is where search on contact where account ID is equal to account ID, whatever value that you get it from your field. And I am saying that store the contact ID, display the contact name. So if you preview it, when you try to access the second lookup directly, you will not get any list. It's going to send back an empty list because there's no account ID set over here on the first lookup. It's depending on the first lookup. So let me search for an account name, select the account. Now I can select the contact. So these are the contacts related to that particular account. So if I use a different account, I'll get the contacts related to that particular account. So you can also, there are a couple of patterns in here. So your data can come from from a data raptor or some other data source, or it can come from some other value. Essentially, whatever value that you have in your data JSON can be used as a filter key for your lookup. The third example that I have over here is a lookup with multiple queries. So here I am going to try to look up for customer contacts from all customer accounts. Right. So I have to, again, I am not using a data source here. Instead, I have my first query is to get the list of IDs of all accounts. So here you can see that account type is equal to customer is, so all customer accounts. So I'll get in the first set of query, the lookup order is 1 that I have mentioned over here. We'll get the ID of all accounts. And in my second query, I am using the accounts.ID, which is the output of my first account, as the input of my second query. So you will see that here I am looking up contact where account ID is equal to accounts:ID. So what all ID that you have fetched on the first query will be used as an input as the first query. I am putting the JSON path as contacts, and I will say that display only the list of contacts. I'm not really bothered about displaying the name of the account. I just want to get the list of contacts, but there are two queries in here. First, find all the list of all the accounts of type customer, and then show the list of all contacts associated with it. So there are going to be contacts associated with more than one account. Let's see a demonstration of this one. So this is not dependent on the previous field values in here. So I'll directly click on this, and you will see that these are all the contacts associated with customer accounts. Right. So you can display all the customer accounts in here. So similar way, you can have more than one query configuration that runs in a sequence, but at the end of the day, you can select only one specific value. So finally what you configure over here to be displayed is going to be contact ID and contact name. So when you have multiple configuration, and if you have data inputs using data sources, you can add multiple inputs and you can use them in each of these different queries as you want. Another type of lookup is to use pick list values based on record ID. So you can normally use a select field with the option source as S object to get the values from a pick list. So here I am using account type. The source is account.type, so it will get the list of all values of account dot type in here, right? So that is the default behavior. But the problem with this is that you will get all account types. So sometimes you might have a requirement that you want to display records by record type. So if you are trying to create a specific type of record and the pick list values are restricted by the record ID. Say for example, here I have a record type called as provider, right? And in provider, the field account type does not use all these available values. It uses only two values called as prospect and other. So otherwise, you have many values in here, right? So let's see demonstration. Let me see let's look at the lookup configuration first. So here again, I'm not I don't have any input in here. Data sources pick list filtered by record type. So I'll use the same object and field account dot type, and I'll provide the name of the record type. So I'll say provider is my record type. This also can be a merge fields. You can, if you are getting your record type from a data raptor, you can use a merge field to get the data from your data JSON also. But here I'm just providing the record type name directly. Now let's see this in action. So you will see that when you are using the select value, you get the entire list of values. Another disadvantage of using the select values over here is that when you use a select value, the select value is not going to be dynamic. So when you configure this OmniScript, and when you compile that OmniScript, whatever the pick list field values at that particular point of time is what is going to come on this particular field. So if you make a change in your pick list values after your OmniScript is activated, that change is not going to be reflected on the list of values. Essentially saying this value is never going to be dynamic in nature. At the same time, this can be dynamic. Now you look at use that the account lookup, you get only two values because we said that for that particular pick list get the values of only account and it's only account record type called as provider, right? So you get the values only for that record. So that's another use case of you're using a lookup that you can get a pick list values filtered by record type, right? So that's another use case in here. So depending on where you want to use it, if you want to get the values in a drop down list dynamically, you can use lookup. Certain limitations apply. You can get only one value. If you want to more than one fields, you should use a type head or some other fields in there. You can configure your input from a previous some other field essentially. Some field from your data JSON, you can configure your lookup field like this. You can configure more than one lookup queries if you want to execute queries in a sequence. Another option for your lookup is essentially the third option that you will have on your data source type is custom. So custom will use an Apex program, use an Apex function to get the value of to the lookup. Essentially, you will make a remote call to an Apex function which will give you the list of. So again, it has to be in that key value pair of name and value, which will the name will be displayed in that drop down list and value is what will be selected on that. It's similar to pick list, dynamic pick list using Apex. You can use it, but the difference over there is that lookup is going to be really dynamic, as in the values are fetched in runtime, while in case of a pick list the values are not fetched in runtime, the values are fetched in compile time. So you will have the preloaded values on your lookup. So hope that kind of explains the use case of lookup. There are additional references available, so if you want you can just open the help article. You can just click on this question mark icon in here. So it explains the entire concept of using the lookup. If you go to the success community, there are a couple of examples that you can use with respect to the lookup configuration as well, right? So you can see this lookup query configurations on how exactly can you configure multiple queries, how do you use the different joins, how do you use the deep queries, example, in your lookup. Thank you.